Hey, everybody, you're listening to What Are You Doing in Denmark, the podcast that helps you make Denmark make sense. My name is Hartman. I've been living in Denmark since 2017, and one thing that I love is the chance to learn even more about Danish history, especially the spooky history. And today we have a special guest in the studio, Mike Walsh.
Hello.
Back in the hosting chair. Yes, OG of the podcast.
That's me.
And skeptic when it comes to these sorts of ghost stories.
Yes. You know, while I'm your partner in life, I don't necessarily share the same love for ghost stories that you have, but I'm a lover of history, and you claim to tell me that today you're going to make me enjoy not just a special part of Denmark's history, but special ghost history as well.
Yes, so I do love history, but I also love ghost stories, and I have a few for you today. I know you are skeptical,
Win
but
me over.
I found some good ones that are, again, rooted in history.
Let's hit it.
They all have to do with a building in Sjælland, west of Copenhagen, that we've actually been to together, which is Dragsholm Slot. It's one of the most haunted buildings in Europe, and I have a few ghost stories that I'll share with you today.
Okay.
So
Win me over.
Yes. Okay. So the first one is a sad story of the White Lady.
Oh no.
Yes. So, and I just don't mean not white like she probably was white, but but she's wearing a white dress. That's where she gets the name. Please don't cancel us. Okay. Her name was Celestine Marianne de Bayonne Guildstern. Oh, yeah, it's a mouthful.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well
so
done.
that was her name, and that's scary enough, but she was the daughter of a powerful noble family who lived in Dragsholm Slot.
Okay.
And her father, by the name of Mogens, was just sort of a typical nobleman. He wanted to set up his daughter for marriage. He found an appropriate suitor early in her life.
Of course, because arranged marriage is the way to... Why find love when you can arrange something to secure the family homestead?
Exactly. It's about the nobility, right?
Of course.
It's not about the happiness of...
He had a fancy hat. He had to keep it.
Why would women have agency? Yeah. So he sets this up for her. And, of course, she has her own ideas about who she wants to marry and what she wants to do with her life. And it's said that she falls in love with a commoner, someone below... Yes. Far below her social standing. This is before Janteloven, I guess. Or maybe she was just exercising it. She was an early adopter because she fell in love with somebody who worked in the stables.
Oh,
yes.
She found a stable boy.
A stable boy.
Oh, God.
Yes, find a stable boy, find a stable husband.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, and well, that's what she tried to do, but Mogens was not so happy about that.
Of course. He had a plan.
Yeah, he had a plan, and it did not involve a commoner.
Right.
So basically, then he really got a plan. So this plan was far more sinister. So basically, now there's a couple different stories out there, and it depends on the source. Of course, these aren't necessarily hardcore historical facts. These are tales that are retold of a ghost. But it's said that Celestine was with child.
Oh, no.
Yes.
She was knocked up by the stable boy.
So scandalous.
Scandalo.
Either way, we know that Mogens finds out about her romance, and he is not too happy about it. So whether it's because she's visibly pregnant or because he catches them in some kind of act and just finds out about it, he's not so happy. So he comes up with a plan. So first, depending on which story you believe, he either tells her that she needs to go to Schleswig and have the baby there, out of sight, out of mind, nobody will know, and then come back, or he finds out that she's planning to run away with the stable boy. So either way, the plan was for her to get out of town. What he ends up doing instead is locking her in a very small room, like physically chained, locked in a small room she can barely stand up in. This is a room within the castle. And eventually she's just sort of forgotten. She's left there.
Oh, my God. They're just like, where's Celestine?
I don't know. She ran off.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Schleswig? I don't know.
Right?
Yeah, it could be anywhere. Basically, days turned into months, and she turned into a ghost.
Oh, so she died in there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oops.
So, her hopes dwindled. She perishes there. In the 1930s, this is actually true. They were renovating the castle, and they did find a little nook.
Oh, God.
With a skeleton in it. And it said that she was wearing, that there around the skeleton was tatters of white silk.
Oh, God.
And then it said that you can often find the ghostly figure of the White Lady roaming the halls of Dragsholm Slot. She's either looking for lost love. She has a particular interest in men who are sleeping within the building.
Wow. I mean, she likes to sleep with men in the building, I guess.
And there's nothing wrong with that. We're not slut-shaming a
I'm
ghost
not slut-shaming
from
her.
the 1300s, okay? So originally, this castle was built for the Bishop of Roskilde. So basically, it's seen all kinds of things from, it's been a fortification, it's been like a palatial residence. It's now actually a hotel. You can go and stay there with a nice restaurant. And so the guests of the hotel often report that there'll be, especially men who are sleeping there, that they're will often experience this specter,
the white lady.
The white lady, exactly. There's also the gray lady.
The gray lady.
Okay, are you ready for her?
Really colorful history here.
Well, from white to gray, we're just moving straight through the ghosts of
the ghost
Dragsholm.
spectrum.
Yes, the ghost spectrum. So the gray lady's a little happier. So we had like a sad female ghost. Now we have a happy female ghost.
Woo.
And then there's a couple later that are just kind of assholes. The gray lady, she's actually very sweet. So she was a girl who worked at the manor.
Okay.
And she was on hard times. So she was the oldest of her siblings. Her parents, she lost them. And she was trying to keep her siblings together. Kind of like, what's that show from the 90s, Party of Five?
Yes.
Yeah, it was very that. So she was like working hard to keep the family together, but they were just, times were tough.
Yeah.
So she ended up stealing silverware and cutlery.
Oh no. Go steal the silver.
I mean,
you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do
what you got to do.
There
you
were
survive.
there were less moral ways to make a living
true.
back then, and she was stealing some forks, right? So eventually she gets caught by the lady of the house, like the lady of the manor, right? Yes. Now, it's not what you think. She did not get like locked up into
until she turned to
room
dust.
to turn into dust. Yeah. It actually went very much the other way. This is the happy ghost story, right?
Okay.
So the lady of the manor decides, okay, I understand your situation. I'm familiar with what you're going through. Now, it's not my lot in life, but I want to help you. So she gave her some more training, some more responsibility. Oh. And basically the gray lady like failed up.
Okay.
Right? So it's like, oh, you're a thief? Well, why don't I put you in charge of more things?
I can trust you. Look, she's a woman who gets stuff done. That's the kind of soft skills that people look for in a CV.
Yeah, there's some ingenuity there.
Yeah.
So she's doing what she has to do. Yeah, exactly. So she's like, okay, just give me back my knives and forks, right? And then I'm gonna see to it that you get some proper training, that you can make a little bit more money and take care of your family. And she was so grateful that she decided that she's forever going to take care of this property.
Okay.
Yeah. So sadly, a little bit later, she had some health problems. She took a turn herself. Now, yeah, a little sad. It depends what source you look at. Some say that she had a terrible toothache. Oh. And it maybe turned into like an abscess. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm certainly not or a dentist. I'm not a medieval dentist either.
Right.
So I don't know exactly what happened to her, but we do know that they tried to help her. They really took care of her. They gave her some remedies, but eventually it was just too much trauma.
Maybe bloodletting for a toothache isn't the way to go.
Maybe it could have been maybe Friday Slick. She just was having too much sugar.
Too much sugar, that'll happen.
And eventually the toothache got the best of her, and she did perish in the castle.
Aww.
But she was so grateful of her employers there, and she was treated so well that she basically decided, I will be taking care of this castle even in the afterlife.
So she's the happy ghost that goes around and keeps everybody welcome in the place, kind of the happy hostess.
Exactly. So again, it's now a hotel and a very nice restaurant, and guests often say that they feel this like inexplicable sense of calm and comfort. And that's when they sort of know that her presence is around. And then later that night, often they will end up seeing this apparition of the gray lady. And she's just sort of wearing a long gray dress and silently moving through the castle, fulfilling her promise to care and protect for the grounds and the people within them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, good for the gray lady.
She's a sweetheart.
I like a happy ghost.
I like a happy ghost too.
I like a happy
It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom and terrorizing people.
No.
So the next one is a ghost story of the Bishop of Roskilde.
Okay, so this is his castle.
So yeah. So now, if you see a trend here, I think it's also, to put my feminist cap on.
Hit it.
The women, like, we barely know their names. We're not really sure what happened to them.
White
but then,
lady,
then we
gray
have
lady.
white lady, gray lady, and then we like literally know all of the information. And there's like a full historical record of the Bishop of Roskilde.
Well, important man.
Yeah. So this is years later. So the 15th century. The guy's name is Jakob Runau. Joachim. Sorry, Joachim Runau. And he is the Bishop of Roskilde. So it's his place. And it's more of a palace than a castle. It's not super fortified, but he's sort of living there. And if you know anything about the 16th century, this was the period of the Reformation, right? So not necessarily a great time to be a ruling clergy Catholic in Northern Europe. Anyway, he decides to be that. Right. So he's like living in this palatial palace. It's 1536, and there's sort of a power struggle between different noble class in Denmark.
Is it the classic Catholic versus Protestant fight?
Exactly.
Oh,
You're right. So this is Reformation. So there's many things going on. Essentially, the bishop was kind of like a messy guy for the time. So there's basically like an open war of secession as far as the crown goes. So there's supposed to be an election of king. He ends up postponing it. Now, he sort of had grounds because there was a delegation from Norway that was supposed to come. Remember, Norway was part of Denmark, Norway. Right. They were the Norway part. So they were supposed to come as well. So he ends up sort of being messy. He ends up delaying things a little bit.
Got it. Because he wants to be respectful. His guests haven't come to the party yet. He doesn't want to have the election.
Basically, he was trying to make sure that Catholics from Lübeck were also there in time. Or somewhere in sort of that like southern Jutland region, that they could get there in time so that he could have more Catholic influence on who the successor
he wanted to
be.
Make sure he won the vote.
Exactly.
And this is the era where you don't hold elections unless you know you're going to win.
It was very Game of Thrones. So essentially, like, he's just kind of being messy, and he's kind of just doing these things that led to a war and then a coup d'etat.
Oh?
Excuse my poor French. If you got over my poor Danish, then that's my poor French pronunciation too. So we're going back to like, he does these things. So like 1533, he basically delays the election. A year later, there's an all-out war. And then there's about 2 years where there's really no king because it's just sort of like factions and war. And then we get to 1536, there's like the final coup. And then that results in actually having a king. They basically decide to do a land grab and seize all the property of the bishops and the Catholics because, one, they want to pay for the war debt. And two, they couldn't really trust the people who were trying to keep them from being king. So our poor bishop is imprisoned first at his home in Dragsholm Slot, and then eventually he's moved around a bit. He goes to Copenhagen Castle, which is now Clichenborg, and he's imprisoned there. And that's where he perishes. Yeah.
I mean, fun fact of European history, why is Northern Europe richer? It's because they took all the Catholic properties, money, everything else, and built that as the foundation for Northern European countries.
Yeah, that's basically what happened.
And poor Joachim.
Yeah. Bishop to you.
Bishop to me.
He's still the Bishop of Roskilde. So he perishes in Copenhagen Castle, aka Clichenborg, but he haunts his old house, which makes sense.
It makes sense. He's mad. They got rid of him.
Yeah. So guests often report seeing this ghostly bishop wandering the dark stone corridors of Dragsholm Slot, and he's dressed in sort of traditional Catholic gowns and garb, and they sometimes hear him chanting. So he's a mess.
He's a mess. He's haunting. I mean, in his defense, he thought he was bishop, kind of ruler of this realm, and now all he's left to is haunting the halls of his former home.
Exactly.
For all eternity.
Yeah. Ooh. And the last one is the real asshole. And he's the Earl of Bothwell, James Hepburn. So you may not know that name. He had a very famous wife. It wasn't Audrey Hepburn. It was Mary, Queen of Scots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he had a few wives. He was kind of an asshole. So his first wife was named Anna. She was the daughter of a Norwegian nobleman. And basically the story is she was kind of running out of money. He coerced her to sell all of her possessions, which she did. They were still short on money. So they went to Denmark. And she kind of like asked her family for money, and they were like, yo, this guy's kind of a jerk. So she's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll divorce him. Then he gets married to his second wife, who was just like a lady, like a lady of title, not just like a lady. So she was like a Scottish lady. And they got divorced because he was cheating on her with one of her servants. So then in between those two wives, he's somehow in France and he meets Mary, Queen of Scots. They have kind of a moment. They may have had more than a moment together.
Right. But
ends up, he's back in Edinburgh, and her second husband mysteriously dies in an explosion that he may have been responsible for.
Oh, mysterious and also malicious.
So then they get married 8 days later.
Oh,
and they had been cohorting prior to that. So this is like also during the period of the Reformation. There's sort of like a Catholic, Lutheran, Protestant sort of thing. We know even with England and Scotland there was that, but it basically does not win over the public that, Mary's second husband dies. She immediately gets married to this other shady guy.
Oops.
Basically, the people of Scotland, the noblemen there, decide that this can't be. So Mary gets jailed. He flees. He goes to Scandinavia.
Okay.
Right? He's like, well, like they're usually cool with me up there.
Yep.
So he's sailing near Bergen, and the noble family catches him without the right papers. I don't know what papers he needed, but he didn't have these papers on the ship.
Yep.
And he's imprisoned, sort of like, just, stay here, but you're also not allowed to leave imprisonment in Bergen Castle. Who goes and files a complaint against him in Norway?
No idea.
His first wife, Anna.
Oh.
Right? Norwegian noblewoman.
Right. She wants revenge.
Like, yeah, we don't like this guy. Right. So she must have a soft spot for him, though, because she wants to sue him for her dowry back. In exchange for just the ships that he had, she was like, that's cool. Yep. We can just settle that this way. She takes the ships. He sails to Denmark. That's where then the king at the time finds him and realizes that he's not too popular in Scotland. This is going to cause an international incident, and he gets imprisoned.
I sense a theme with all these people.
Yeah. So, basically, long story long, he gets imprisoned in Malmo Castle.
Okay.
At the time, of course, that was Denmark as well. A lot of things were Denmark at that time that aren't anymore, but that's a different episode. So he's imprisoned there and then eventually moved to Dragsholm Slot. He is imprisoned there. He's chained to a pillar.
Oh, God.
For 10 years.
Oh, God.
There's still the pillar. You can see it today.
Oh, my God.
And the floor around that pillar is like worn out because
he just walked laps around the pillar.
The last 10 years of his life.
That's all he could do.
That's all he got to get his steps in, right?
Yep.
So like he's doing his 10,000 steps a day around this pillar, and you can still see where the floor is sunken in. But that's not all. You can also see where his ghost appears. And there's a courtyard in Dragsholm Slot now, and it's said that this man, as a ghost, rides on horseback across the castle courtyard.
There you go. So now we have another. Is he a happy ghost or a sad ghost?
He's kind of a sad ghost, I guess, because he was kind of an asshole.
And he was on a pillar for 10 years.
And he wakes people up.
Oh.
Yeah, which was not good.
That's not cool.
So if you go to Dragsholm Slot, you'll now have these 4 ghosts. You'll have the white lady walking around, the gray lady walking around. You'll have the chanting bishop wandering the halls. And in the courtyard, you will have a ghostly Earl of Bothwell, Mary, Queen of Scots, second, third husband, whatever. You got this kind of jerk riding horseback through the courtyard.
So it sounds like a fantastic place. You get to meet fancy people and fancy ghosts.
Yeah, very interesting castle. Basically what happened to it is the king eventually was massively in debt because there were several wars with Sweden. This was also the period where Sweden marched over the frozen straits and then grabbed the castle and many other lands. They had to pay for that. So they ended up selling it into private families. And that's why it's a hotel now, but a very haunted one.
But a very haunted one. Sounds like a phenomenal place to go visit.
Yeah, especially if you want to see some ghosts. So what do you think? A little bit of history, a little bit of ghost stories.
I enjoyed the history. The ghosts are fun. They had a little color, even if all the color is gray and white,
Gray, white, and
black, and yeah,
being terrible to women.
Correct.
Yeah, but I guess
sounds
that
like
was
the medieval period.
Yes, exactly. So there you have it. Some
Fantastic.
Danish
What
ghost
great
stories. Yeah. And
okay, I'm a convert at least to these ghost stories.
I appreciate that. And thank you for listening to my stories, Mike,
Yes.
even though you don't like ghost stories. And thank you all for listening and watching. And have a very happy day. Hi, hi.
Hi, hi.